So today I want to talk about bailouts. Nobody likes them, Mr. President, and under our proposal, they will never happen again. As the President said in his State of the Union address, bailing out some of the large banks whose own mismanagement caused the crisis was about as popular as a root canal, to quote him exactly. That, of course, happened under the previous administration, I should note. But serious legislators of both parties realized that we had no choice. Our system was so broken that these companies had become too big to fail. If we did nothing else, our entire economy would collapse, we were told. You would think that if you wanted to avoid being backed into the corner again, if you wanted to avoid more bailouts, you would oppose efforts to protect the status quo. But Wall Street's special interests needed a way to defend the broken system. After all, for many of them, the kind of mismanagement that cost us millions of jobs is the way they pad their profits and pay their lobbyists. And so they turned to Frank Luntz, their political strategist. Now let me tell you what Mr. Luntz came up with, and I quote from Mr. Luntz's memo that was leaked, unfortunately, for Mr. Luntz and others. But let me quote the partisan memo. The single best way to kill this legislation is to link it to the big bank bailout, end of quote. No matter what is proposed, no matter what's in the bill, no matter what the protections it includes, call it a bailout. It's a naked political strategy, Mr. President, and if it succeeds and this legislation goes down and another crisis sinks the American economy, then the next recession and all the damage that it'll bring to the working families of this country will have happened for the sake of that false talking point that Mr. Luntz has been proposing. Now, I don't expect Frank Luntz to care about the truth of what we're engaged in here. That's not his job. He's a political strategist. He's to provide political talking points to people when you want to defeat something. I don't expect the bank lobbyists and the special interests to care about the truth. They don't seem to worry about that. But the American people deserve better from us in this chamber. And that's why I've been so dismayed over these last 24 hours to hear members of this body repeat the utter falsehoods concocted by special interests whose jobs and pensions are plenty secure, thank you very much, that this bill would lead to more bailouts. Frank Luntz suggested that allies of the big banks say, and I quote him, if there's one thing we can all agree on, this is Frank Luntz talking, there's one thing we can all agree on, it's that the bad decisions and harmful policies by Washington bureaucrats that in many ways led to the economic crash must never be repeated, end of quote. The minority leader speaking yesterday, let me quote him, if there's one thing Americans agree on when it comes to the financial reform, it's this: never again should taxpayers be expected to bail out Wall Street from its own mistakes. We cannot allow endless taxpayer-funded bailouts for big Wall Street banks. And that's why we must not pass financial reform bill that's about to hit the floor, end of quote. Remember what Frank Luntz said, quote, the single best way to kill any legislation is to link it to the big bank bailout, end of quote. Mr. President, it's straight from the Wall Street special interest talking points. That's what they're determined to do, defeat this bill by suggesting somehow that there's a bailout provision in this bill. Nothing could be further from the truth. The bill, as drafted, ends bailouts. Nothing could be more clear in the legislation.